My former best friend accepted an award for youth mentorship and told a room full of donors how he saved me from addiction, and I made sure it was the last time he used my story. For 5 years, I had been the cautionary tale that became a success story thanks to Brandon's intervention. I was 32 years old. He was 33. Every fundraising event included him sharing how he pulled me back from the edge. I listened to him tell philanthropists about the night he showed up at my apartment and refused to let me destroy my life. I stayed quiet because I thought maybe he believed his own version. The gala was packed with people who donated thousands based on how Brandon saved his childhood friend. His girlfriend kissed him before he went on stage, while she waved at me like I was part of their success. The executive director introduced him as a man who understood redemption. When the spotlight hit him, Brandon held his award with both hands. Then Brandon clicked to a photo of us from college and started telling the story of my rock bottom. "I want to talk about the real reason I started this foundation," he said, voice thick with emotion. "7 years ago, I got a text from my best friend at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday." The room leaned forward. "He said he needed money," Brandon continued, shaking his head, "and I knew what that meant. I knew he was using again, and if I sent him money, I might never see him alive." Someone in front put her hand over her heart. "So I didn't send the money," Brandon said, looking at me. "Instead, I drove 2 hours to his apartment. I found him in a bad state, really bad, and I made a promise that night." His voice cracked. "I would do whatever it took to get him help. I wouldn't give up on him, even if he'd given up on himself." My boss squeezed my arm supportively. "I stayed with him through detox," Brandon continued. "I went to meetings with him. I helped him find a job. I called him every day for 2 years to make sure he stayed on track." The room was silent, except for quiet crying. "And now," Brandon held up his award, "I get to watch him thrive, healthy and successful and whole. That's why I do this work." The audience erupted in applause, and several people stood. Then something buried in me for 5 years surfaced with perfect clarity. I stood and walked to the front while Brandon basked in applause. The crowd went quiet. Brandon's smile turned confused. "Tell them where you were when I texted you that night, Brandon." Brandon's face froze. "What?" I pulled out my phone and turned it toward the projector. The AV tech switched the input and my screen appeared behind Brandon. "Tell them where you were." Brandon tried to laugh. "Buddy, this isn't the time." I pulled up our text thread from 7 years ago. "Here's my text at 11:04 p.m. I need help, please." The message filled the screen. I scrolled up. "And here's the text an hour before. I know what you did. We need to talk." The room went completely silent. "I wasn't asking for money. I was asking you to take responsibility for getting me hooked in the first place." Brandon shook his head frantically. "You're confused. Addiction messes with memory." I pulled up my medical records. "Here's my intake form from rehab." I highlighted a section. "Patient reports substance use began after friend provided prescription medication following injury, then continued supplying pills for 6 months." The executive director stood slowly. I scrolled to texts. "Here's you asking me to pick up your Adderall prescription. Here's you offering me Percocet after my shoulder surgery. Here's you connecting me with your dealer when prescriptions ran out." Brandon's girlfriend was staring at him. Expression changed completely. I clicked to my call log. "You drove 2 hours that night because I told you I was going to tell your parents what you'd done. You were terrified they'd cut off your trust fund." I looked at the crowd. "He didn't come to save me. He came to make sure I stayed quiet." And I did, because he said if I exposed him, he'd make sure everyone knew I was just a drug addict making excuses. Brandon grabbed for the microphone, but the director pulled it away. "My rehab was paid for by my grandmother's life insurance. Brandon didn't help me find a job. He told my first employer I was in recovery, so they'd always see me as a liability. I have the email." Someone in the third row gasped. I picked up my jacket and looked at Brandon. "You know what? I'm glad you won this award, because now everyone knows exactly what kind of second chances you believe in."